Hey everyone, welcome back. Stancil Wealth Planning Podcast. Thank you for joining us, whether you're listening, whether you're watching on YouTube, wherever you may be. Thank you for joining us here. I have a great episode for you. If you feel like you're paying more for auto insurance or homeowner insurance or any kind of insurance policies, if you haven't shopped them around in a while, this episode is for you. I have a guest on, Micah LaBorde. Micah, what's going on, man?
Not much, man. Just living the dream. Doing good over
Living
here.
Living the dream, living the insurance dream.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. So like I was saying, we'll go through Micah as an insurance company. A long story. Stancil Wealth Planning is associated with Victory Financial Group, and around that is Victory Insurance, which Micah, is a part of. And so kind of connected affiliates, if you will. We've had a couple of conferences together. Mike and I's golfed a few times. And so we'll walk through current rates, what are you seeing in the market, some of those things, and just helping out the consumers. Especially, I just feel like over the last few years, just rates have really gone up. So is there anything people can do about it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Micah, let me formally introduce you here, and then we'll just kick it off and dive in. Let's see here. As an independent agency, Victory Insurance shops the major providers to find the best one for you and your family. They don't work for the carrier, they work for you. They help individuals and business owners with insurance solutions from home, auto, commercial, and more. Micah is dedicated to connecting with his customers and providing exceptional service. He carries this passion for people into everything he does, both inside and outside of his career. So let's start it off. Yeah, what are you seeing? Current rates, homeowner, vehicle? Tell us what's going on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say that question is a difficult one to answer, just in a broad perspective, but it really just depends on your location. So here in Texas, it's very segmented and rates follow those different areas. I'll start with DFW. DFW is, it's struggling in some zip codes. The rates are pretty high, and it's hard to secure new insurance at a competitive rate. They have improved over the past couple of years. 2022, 2023 were pretty terrible. I mean, all the rates were spiked, and DFW even basically closed new business with a lot of the companies. Overall, for DFW, it's not perfect, but it is getting better. Some carriers are coming back on the scene. They want new business in this area. And to get new business, they have to be competitive. So rates up here are getting better. They're just not perfect. Central Texas, it's kind of a sweet spot. Central Texas is doing really well right now. A lot of companies want business there. So they're taking rates down. They're getting a lot more competitive in the San Marcos area in between Austin and San Antonio. Austin, with value homes, can be a little difficult, but overall, Central Texas is a sweet spot where rates are pretty good. And then the coastal areas, I think they're just always going to be tough. It's never going to be a perfect world down there. But at Victory Insurance, we actually do have a couple carriers who specialize in those areas. And I've been able to find a lot of success with helping people move from those state farms and the farmers to some more independent agency companies that specialize in the coastal zones. The rates in Houston, you just got to get a little creative. You got to look at some new carriers. And with that, you can find some better rates.
Yeah, no, and that definitely makes sense, especially it's very regional, right? Weather-wise, DFW is never going to get a hurricane like coastal is, so that makes sense.
Right.
When you do say regional, I assume you just mean homeowner, like for an auto policy. Does it really matter area,
Yeah.
region?
Not really. Yeah. So that answer was specifically for homeowners. Auto insurance across the state, they kind of just follow suit. It's the rates are not as broken up by zip code or area. Auto rates are really comes down to does the company want new business? Are they going to be competitive? And right now, auto's pretty wide open. You can secure some good rates, and we have some really great carriers who are competitive for the auto. So if you're with a State Farm or you're with the Farmers or an Allstate and you've been with them for a while, odds are you're overpaying for the auto, and it's definitely worth taking a look at some other carriers.
Yeah, that was definitely one of my questions, and it's kind of at the end, and we'll go into those details here in a little bit. But if you're watching or listening, Micah and Victory Insurance is independent, which what that means is what he was saying. He's not representing a certain, State Farm and here's your insurance options, right? He's independent. He can go, you guys go to multiple carriers, shop it around. And it's very similar to what we do, right? There's not just I don't work somewhere where it's just like, okay, here's your mutual funds or here's these select investments. We're independent. We can invest in anything. So big believer in independence when it comes to not being pigeonholed to a certain product or price or some of those things.
Yeah.
So having said that, how often, I probably don't do this enough, how often should someone shop these kind of policies?
Yeah, I think that also comes down to being with an independent advisor rather than a State Farm or Farmers agency. Shopping it out, it really comes down to what your renewal looks like. What is that company increasing your premium by? So I would say if you're not with an independent advisor, that's step number one. You got to have an independent advisor get you squared away with all your policies. And then whenever it comes to how often should I shop, that kind of comes down to the advisor and their advice. I would say annually, if you're not having somebody at least look at your renewals, you're probably overpaying. So with my clients, it's not always the right idea to shop every year. Sometimes these carriers will actually drop your rate or give you, a discount every year. So it's not like a surefire, like you have to shop it every year. But what I do at least is, I review the renewals with my clients. I look at them together. I let them know, hey, we're actually going to be taking some points down here. We're dropping 15%. So I think we're good for another year. But then if a renewal comes back and it's drop or it's spiking 15% or increasing 10 or even 5%, it's worth a shop. So at least have an independent person or an advisor, hopefully me, review your renewals and then establish whether or not it's a good time to shop.
Is there any downside to shopping? Like, like you don't ding a credit score. Or there's nothing like how long does it take if someone comes to you, hey, I got your info from Cody. I want you to look at my policies. Like, how quickly can you run quotes and kind of give them an idea of what they're looking at?
Yeah, turnaround time is usually a couple hours unless it's a complex case and you have multiple properties and multiple policies. But, for your general home and auto umbrella package, do it in an hour, 2 hours.
It's awesome. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely worth, in my opinion, once a year.
Yeah,
If it's
no
gonna take
downside.
Gotcha. That's awesome. So what are some common misconceptions you hear from clients that come to you and they kind of ask the same question? It's a big misconception.
There's a lot with insurance. There's a lot of misconceptions about
We
insurance.
have time, so feel free to go through them.
I'll start with what you guys probably hear and see every day with the commercials. The bundle and save. The Everybody thinks, I have to bundle to save money. And sometimes that is the case. Sometimes putting your home and your auto together with a carrier does give you some awesome savings. But, being independent, sometimes it makes a lot of sense to break things up. Sometimes you have a carrier like Progressive or Geico that are giving you a really good rate on your auto. And then we got to go somewhere else for the home because the carriers that do home and auto together are not giving you as big of a discount on the auto as they are on the home. So it really just, it's not a one answer. Oh, if I bundle, I'm going to save the most. It's no, have an independent person look at everything, check out all of the carriers, make sure that everything is maximizing the savings. So the bundle and save stigma is not always the case. Just that's one misconception. And then the other one I wanted to
You hear
touch
that
on.
everywhere. I can't turn on a football game and not hear some major carrier talking about bundling and saving.
Spend a lot of money on their marketing. Commercials are everywhere.
Yeah.
And then the other misconception I hear all the time is, I don't want to switch. I've been with Allstate. I've been with USAA for 10, 15 years. I'm getting a loyalty discount. There's no such thing. Allstate, any company does not give you substantial discounts for just staying with them. They actually do the opposite. They just steadily increase your rate by 1%, 2% every year. So if you're with a company for 15 years, and you haven't shopped it or 10 years, you are definitely overpaying. I mean, I just had a client last week at the same pushback. They're like, hey, I'm good. I've been with Allstate for 15 years. I'm getting a good discount. I was like, oh, well, it doesn't help or it doesn't hurt just to take a look. So we took a look and we saved them over $6,000 a year because they were getting just robbed on their auto insurance.
Oh my gosh.
It makes a lot of sense to look. A lot of people with insurance, it's just a set it and forget it type of thing. And that'll get you in trouble. It really will. You'll just be overpaying and not even know. Those are the two big ones, bundle and save. And then, I'm getting a loyalty discount because I've been with USAA for 10 years.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I'll run across, and no offense to your industry, but it's like, yeah, my brother-in-law does my home and auto, and it's like, that's what you started with, and it feels awkward to at least shop it around. You're not, the previous company doesn't have to know, and it's just worthy. Yeah, if you're going to save them $10 a month, yeah, obviously weigh those pros and cons. Stay with your brother-in-law. You don't want it to be awkward at Thanksgiving. But if we're
Right.
talking $6,000 a year,
Yeah.
okay, this is substantial money. And then the bundle save cracks me up too, because it just reminds me, I'm a big analogy guy. Like my wife and I will go out to a nice dinner, a steakhouse or whatever, and she's a big desserts fan. And
Hmm.
so I'm like, hey, let's look at the dessert menu. And none of them look good, but we're already here. We're already sitting down. And it's kind of like the bundle and save. Like, wow, we're already here. Let's go ahead and order the cheesecake. She's like, I don't want the cheesecake. Like, I want to drive to Andy's and get
Yeah.
ice cream. It's going to be the same price, and the ice cream is going to be better. I already know that I like the ice cream. And so it's kind of the same way. Like, there's some companies that they have like really good homeowner policy, but their auto's expensive or not very comprehensive. And just because you bundled them, you might be getting one that's pretty good and the other one that's like, no, I want to drive down the street and get a better one, right?
Hmm.
And
No,
pay the
that's
same
good.
price.
Yeah,
You agree with that?
absolutely. Yeah, there's some carriers that specialize in one line of business. So, they're just going to knock it out of the park all the time with auto. And then there's sometimes companies that are like, hey, in this area, I really want to focus on homeowners. So we're going to be dropping rates for that. So that's why it just makes sense to make sure you're looking, and you're giving all of the carriers an opportunity to beat your rate. So, but like I said, sometimes the bundle and save does work. It does. It just depends on your situation, and if you're not taking a more specified approach to your insurance, then you're not doing yourself a good service as far as looking for better options.
Gotcha. Yeah, and especially for a couple hours, it's not a 3-week process. You're not filling out tons of forms. It's not, it's not, they're not dinging your credit report. It's, yeah, worth it in my opinion. So let's come back to what we talked about a little bit earlier, independence, right? So you guys are independent. I mentioned it a little bit, but what do you see the benefits of an independent approach to when it comes to your space and insurance?
Yeah, I mean, it just comes down to more options. We work with over 100 carriers here in Texas, so we have a lot of companies that we will look at. So just having that option to go to different companies for different lines of businesses to maximize the savings makes a lot of sense. And the captive guys, they don't do that. If you're with a State Farm agent, they're selling State Farm products only. Farmers selling farmers products only. Allstate, same thing. So we just have the diversification of companies where we can look and make sure you're in the right spot as far as the carriers go. And then another element is just, tailoring your coverage, customizing things for things that you need versus things that are just thrown in there. We go line by line on the policies. We want to make sure that all the coverages match what you actually need as the client. And there's some things that are just thrown in there that can be taken off. So taking a look at a specific situation and tailoring your coverage and shopping with other companies just will maximize your savings and better protect you and your family. So the tailored coverage, diversification of the companies, and then also education. I'm really big on this with my clients is I want to make sure that I explain what the words on the policies actually mean. Because a lot of people just, oh yeah, I'm covered. I got my auto insurance, and I'm like, well, you don't have XYZ. And this is kind of like the biggest risk, especially in Texas. I think uninsured motorist is a big one that I see all the time. People will send me their policies, and I'm like, hey, you realize that you would be out of pocket for this scenario. And so education is big for us on all policies. We want to make sure that the client understands what they're covered for and what those limits are. So that's
Yeah,
another big
no,
one for
and
me.
that's a really good point. And I didn't have this question in the prep, so if you're not prepared, no problem. But yeah, to me, I think a lot of people, if they're new, maybe they're a new homeowner or younger, or they just don't run in these circles and not really familiar with kind of policies. Your homeowner insurance or your auto insurance isn't a check the box, like you either have it or you don't, right?
Right.
There's vastly different policies and what they cover. And obviously, you went into some of those there. But your particular situation, like with your house, I'm probably going to butcher this terminology, actually insuring your residence, but then there's a liability piece, right? And
Hmm.
then there's another piece. So like there's some folks that may benefit from having increased liability if they have other properties or just what's going on in their particular life. So talk through a little bit, if you don't mind, just what some of those, how those policies are just different inside and out. It's not a check yes or check no. It's okay, what kind of policy meets your needs and what do you need?
Yeah. So establishing what the need is super important. So having a face-to-face or, Zoom or just a call with the client and understanding their need is step one. Liability, that's a big one on homeowners policy. Like a lot of people have low limits and they don't realize what that means. Everything on a homeowner's policy is really broken up and can be tailored to fit what you need. So establishing that need and then kind of going line by line is really big in my process. And there's a lot of exclusions on homeowners policies. A lot of people think that they're covered for something and it's actually an exclusion in their policy and they didn't read it. So that's a big one. So like you said, it's not a checkbox. Water coverage is a big one on homeowners. A lot of people think that they would be covered for foundation leaks or a burst pipe, but those are all endorsements that you add onto the policy and it doesn't come on just a traditional HO3 homeowners policy. So making sure that the water coverages are all set, that's super important because that's a very common claim. And then another big one is definitely your roof settlement type. There's two different types of roof settlement or loss assessments with when it comes to a roof. You got replacement cost, and then you have payment schedule or ACV. One takes depreciation into account, and one is just full replacement. And people don't realize that either. So if you have a 20-year-old roof and you have ACV, you're subject to your deductible, but also have to cover like 50 to 40% of the cost of the replacement. So what's the point of insurance if you're going to be out of pocket, 60% of your roof? So taking, a detailed look at those coverages and exclusions makes, a lot of sense for a homeowner.
Yeah, I can't think, as a financial planner, I can't think of anything worse than unexpected expenses, right?
Hmm.
Especially younger couple or folks that are in retirement and they have a set, pretty fixed income, that something happens with a storm or some flooding or foundation issues and you're about to come out of pocket 20, 30, 40 grand and you thought
Yeah.
you've been paying these premiums your whole life, never had a problem. You think you're covered and then a big expense like this comes up. Nobody needs that. Nobody wants that,
Yeah.
right?
No, that's the worst type of story. And I hear it all the time.
And then this might be, shoot me down if this isn't correct or not correct, but we've had definitely real estate prices just over the last decade. Right? If you bought a house in 2016, it's probably worth twice as much now. And so on those renewals, do they take that into account? Like, yeah, if my house burned down, I might have paid 300 grand for it 6 years ago, but I could probably sell it for 500 or 600 grand now. Does that go back to the how often you should shop policies to kind of take into account what my house is really worth now and not in the
Yeah.
past?
Yeah, so with the renewals, they will do generally an increase on the dwelling A coverage, which is the actual physical home. They base those numbers off of cost of labor, cost of materials to rebuild a house. But it doesn't directly correlate with the market value of the home. We want to look at a replacement cost. All these companies use a replacement cost estimator to establish what they think it would cost to rebuild the home ground up. Like I said, cost of materials, cost of labor. We're not taking into account the land. So if you're in a hot zone where your home spiked 300K, that doesn't necessarily mean it needs to reflect on your insurance
Gotcha.
policy, but making sure that you feel comfortable with the replacement cost estimation, that's a big one too. I have seen people who bought a home in 2018 for 300K and they've kept that coverage just stagnant the whole time. And the replacement cost is actually like 500K because those other things do go up as the market value goes up. It doesn't directly correlate with what Zillow says.
Yeah. Okay. That
Yeah.
that makes sense. Thanks for
Yeah.
clarifying that. Okay. How can we get a hold of you, Micah? What's your website, email, phone number?
Yeah, absolutely. My email is Micah at victory-insurance.com and my phone number 512-630-6978. You can give me a call anytime. If you're working with Cody currently, just let him know that you're open to shopping and he'll send you my way and I'll be happy to help. But yeah, victoryinsurance.com is our website. But yeah, best way to get a hold of me, email or phone.
Micah, appreciate it, man. This has been great.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Thanks a lot. No, I appreciate you.
Yeah, have a good rest of your week.
Yes, sir. You too.
Thank you for listening to the Stancil Wealth Podcast. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It is general in nature and may not apply to your specific situation. Please consult with a professional before acting on any information shared in this podcast pertaining to financial, investment, legal, or tax advice. The views expressed by Cody and his guests do not necessarily represent those of Charles Schwab, Victory Financial Group, or any other organization.